Good evening. Yehovchu Yomim Elu L'Moadim U'L'Simcha. I am recording this year for Veschanan and Chamisha Asar B'Ov tonight, a day before Tisha B'Av. Because since Tisha B'Av is Tuesday, the earliest I could do it is Wednesday night, and then those of you who like to watch it early in the week wouldn't be able to see it till sometime Thursday or Thursday evening. So Mashiach still could come and we wouldn't have to fast. We will all celebrate at the Koisel HaMa'aravi and daven Mincha and myriad there, and the second half of the Geula will take place. And with that statement, I want to open the shir this evening with a question that the Ramban discusses. And he says that really the whole first Sedra, Devarim, was rebuke. That Moshe Rabbeinu was reminding them of what they did wrong here and there. Now Veschanan in the beginning continues that rebuke, but then it stops. And at the end of Veschanan, we speak about if you do the good things, these mitzvahs, then you'll have this, that. It's like all positive. But the rebuke was pretty sharp, even though it was not mentioned by name exactly Avera, what they did. It only referred to the place, and that was the reminder of what they did there. But in the middle of our Sedra, we talk about the Orei Miklot. Oz Yavdil Moshe Sholosh Orim Be'ever Hayardain Mizracha Shomesh, that he established 3 cities of refuge for the person who unintentionally killed. He was in the forest and he was doing some hunting. He thought it was a bird and he shot the arrow and he killed a person. So that person is a shoygeg, unintentional, and he's allowed to run off to the Orei Miklot. There were 6 in total in Eretz Yisrael, and there were 42 houses of Levium that the Levium controlled, and that a shoygeg, hahoireg nefesh, somebody who killed someone unintentionally, was allowed to go there. What was the plus of going there? Because the Orei Miklot protected this man from being killed by the family of whom he killed. That means if they found him in the middle of the street walking on the sidewalk and he had killed unintentionally their brother, their son, their father, they were allowed to kill him on the spot, and there was no mishpat, there was nothing that he was a shoygeg in killing him, and that's what the family was allowed to do. However, if he came to the Orei Miklot, to the city of refuge, they were not allowed to go in there, and they were not allowed to touch him. That was his protection. He had to remain there until the Kohen Gadol died. Now, if when he ran into an Orei Miklot, the Kohen died a year later, so if the Kohen Gadol died, he was allowed to go home. He was only in the Orei Miklot a year. But if the Kohen Gadol didn't die for 40 years, he had to stay there the entire time. So the Ramban says that the parsha begins with still rebuke, but the Klal Yisrael were shaking when he got done because Moshe Rabbeinu really let them have it. But then they went in because they said, how could we ever withstand all this criticism? How could we live? How could we live up to this standard? So therefore, says the Ramban, the Ore Miklat concept, which it was already discussed in Matos, but it was repeated again right here, so that the person who was chock full of Averas was able to feel that, look, we did this and we did that, but over here the Torah is telling us that even a person kills someone, murder, it was unintentional, but it was still murder, is allowed to be saved, so we with our Averas can be saved. And then the Torah moves on to the good things. You do these mitzvahs and those mitzvahs. It provides blessing, it provides a flow of protection. So this coming Shabbos, and tomorrow night is Tisha B'Av, and we hope everyone has an easy fast. It's not easy. It's a 24.5-hour fast, even though it's a d'Rabbanan. It's not a d'Oraisa like Yom Kippur. That means if a Rav had to paskin for somebody who called him up and said, you know, he went to the doctor, he's not feeling well, and this is the problem, the Rav would say he would have leeway to be mater him to eat because it's a d'Rabbanan. It would be much more difficult to tell someone that he could eat, and if he even eats, it has to be with the shiurim, with only little by little different requirements when it comes to Yom Kippur. But when it comes to Tisha B'Av, it's in a different category, but it's still the most chomor tainus, it's the most severe tainus of all of the d'Rabbanans. And it's the hardest and it's the most severe. So a Rav doesn't just give a heter, but it's easier to give the heter than for Yom Kippur. Now, right after Tisha B'Av, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to console and comfort Klal Yisrael. So there are 7 Shabbosos called the Shiva D'Nechemta, which means they are the 7 Shabbosos of consolation. And we have a Haftorah from Yeshayahu each week. And this Shabbos, the first of the 7, begins Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. One is on the Churban Nachamu, and the other Nachamu goes on the fact that they had to go into Golus and that there will be the Geula at the end of the story. But Klal Yisrael is living through a lot of difficulty and everything else till we're going to get to that point. And we hope that it's going to evolve and happen very quickly, Be'ezras Hashem. And in this Sedra, we have the Aseres HaDibris. Now the original, this is just the repeat, but the pasuk says when it talks about Kabed es avicha ve'esimecha and Zochar es Yom HaShabbos l'kadsho, those 2 mitzvahs, that they were already, the Ksav Sofer talks about this, that they were already said in Morah. When they got to the city, to the place called Morah, they had the tzivui of Kibbut Av, Va'im, and they had Shabbos. So asks the Ksav Sofer that when it says it here in the Aseres HaDibros, the pasuk says Ka'asher tzivcha Hashem Elokecha, just like you were commanded. In Morah, it's repeated over here. So the Ksav Sofer asks, why do you have to say Ka'asher tzivcha? If you want to just repeat everything, repeat it. But what do you have to say by those 2 mitzvahs? So he says, interestingly, that when they had the tzivui in Morah, They were still enjoying lechem abirim ochal ish, heavenly bread. They didn't have to work for it. They didn't have to toil. They didn't have to sweat. And their clothes were washed and dried and ironed and starched every single day. So they had the freshness of the smell of something that was just washed and starched. They had beautiful, and even the clothes grew on them. They didn't have to change. The youngster that was now 10 years later, he didn't have to change his suit because it grew with him. So they were all living a very ruchniistic life, a spiritual life. And when it came to their parents, there was a purity, there was a pureness of their respect, because it wasn't that they turned 20 or 30, oh, now we appreciate what our parents did. They fed us and they took care of us. There was no taking care. They had everything from Shemayim, their food, their clothes, their everything. And they still respected them because of the concept that a father is a father and a mother is a mother. But now they were about to go into Eretz Israel, and they were going to have to come on to the parents, because there was no more mun falling from heaven. There was no more Be'ero Shel Miriam traveling with them, and that they had a fountain of water to quench their thirst on the spot. They didn't have to wait or look for it or draw with a pitcher from a well. They were able to just have it right there, take their cups and have the water. And they were going to have to deal with the parents. So the reason, says the Ksav Sofer, that it says Kasher Tzivcha, just like I commanded you then, but then you did it with a purity because you really didn't need your parents to feed you and to take care of you. But now you're going into a position that you need the parents, and I don't want you to have kibbud av because you need the parents. I want you ka'asher tzivcha, just like when I commanded you. Originally, it was out of the pureness of your heart that you loved your father and you loved your mother, and it wasn't because they were helping you in any way, but they were a father and a mother. So ka'asher tzivcha, just the way you did it then, before we came into Eretz Yisrael, now that we're coming into Eretz Yisrael, you have a chiyuv to honor them and do it with the same pureness of heart, even though now in Israel, in Eretz Yisrael, you're going to need them. So don't honor them because you need them. Honor them like you honored them before. Now, the Shiva de Nechemta run up till Rosh Hashanah. In other words, we have like 3 weeks left in Av, and then you have the whole month of Elul, and then comes Rosh Hashanah. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted you to go in, wants us to go into Rosh Hashanah with an extension of an apology or an extension of the consolation, not from the Churban to have to ask for a new year for us. Now, our parsha begins with the word Veschanan, and it's Shabbos Nachamu. And as Rashi points out, Veschanan is the gematria of 515, which is the amount of individual tefillas, prayers, that Moshe Rabbeinu extended didn't forget the story that he was told to speak to the rock and he hit the rock. And many hold that's the reason he didn't go into Eretz Yisrael, and not even to be buried in Eretz Yisrael after he died. But the 515 tefillas, separate individual tefillas, that he davened to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please nullify your gezerah. Let me go into Eretz Yisrael. The Rambam, as I told you a number of weeks ago, he didn't hold that it had anything to do with hitting the rock or talking to the rock. He held it was because Moshe Rabbeinu said, Shimu Noha Moirim, you rebellious people and leaders don't talk to their flock like that, even if it's justified, even if they're frustrated. And that goes for parents and for rebbeim in the yeshiva and for teachers and for next door neighbors, for everybody, that even when we're right, we have to speak with dignity and properly. And that's what the Rambam holds. But in any event, Moshe Rabbeinu started to daven. He wanted desperately to go in. And I told you that in Parshas Pinchas, when he was told to go up the mountain and look at Eretz Yisrael just to see it, it looks like HaKadosh Baruch Hu was teasing him. Because he said, go up there, you can go in, look at it, but you're not going to go into it. So why did he ask him to do it? And we explained so that every Yid afterwards would have a tshuka, a desire to go to Eretz Yisrael and want to be in Eretz Yisrael. And that's why he was told to go up and look, like Maisa Avos Siman Labonim. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered him in our Sedra, Al Tosef Daber Elai Od Badavar. I said, don't offer another prayer, another tefillah, because if you offer one more tefillah, I'm going to have to let you go in. Which means Moshe Rabbeinu, even it was a nagia to himself, but we have a rule that tzaddikim, if there's a gezerah in Shemayim, that a child, lo aleinu, lo aleichem, 1,000 times, is 8 years old and is in a life and death situation, and there's a decree that he should die. But if a tzaddik gomer davens and says, I want that child to live, the Gemara says, tzaddikim mevatlim. That means that tzaddik could either be goizer or mevatl, something that was decreed from heaven. They have that power. Now Moshe Rabbeinu was speaking about himself, but he still was a tzaddik gomer. So it would have turned over the gezerah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted, that he should not step into Eretz Yisrael. And I told you see that the power of tefillah, that like the Yerushalmi says that if somebody gets engaged on Tisha B'Av, the Shulchan Aruch says, you could say Mazel Tov. So the Yerushalmi asks, is that the proper day to say Mazel Tov? Wait for another day, the next day. But the Yerushalmi answers, no. If the Shidduch is Shidduch, say Mazel Tov on Tisha B'Av. Because Shema Yikadmenu Acher, somebody else could snatch it and take it away. The power of tefillah, like we see from Moshe Rabbeinu in davening, and Yidden, the Likutei Basar Likutei quotes Chazal from Kadmoinim, that if a person really davens Erlich in his lifetime, That means he's not looking 8 times at his telephone if a message came in. And he wouldn't do that if he was sitting in front of the president in the Oval Office. But he's really davening sincerely and directing his attention to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Likutei Basar Likutei says he is able to lengthen his life. The power of tefillah, that means a person's born, he could end up being given, let's say, 80 years to live. And he davens very early, so Hashem gives him a matana, a gift, and said, you were supposed to go after 80 years. 88 years, you're going to live another 8 years. And the Kamenetsky say, and it's just from davening seriously and properly. We know, though, that Rav, who lived 400 years, Rav said, he went into a cemetery, the Gemara in Bava Metzia, Daf Kuf Hey, says that Rav went into a cemetery and he asked 100 people who were buried why they died. 99 said ayin hara. That means they did not live even the years that they were given originally in Olam Hazeh. But because of an ayin hara, they lost year. And he said, Rav, that there was only one of the 100 who actually lived out his years as he had to, and he was destined to do as he was when he was born. But according to these Chazal, a person could gain years and years, depending on the quality of his davening, because there is nothing closer to the Rabbanu Shalom than pure davening. And that's why we say 3 Shemona Esreis every single day. And as the Arizal says, that when a person says Shemona Esrei, and he's asking for parnasa, he's asking for relatives or friends that are sick in a hospital, the answer is and comes to him by the loud Shemona Esrei when he says Amen to the bracha of the Shliach Tzibur. And that's why you will never find by Hasidim that they do the short Shemona Esrei by Mincha. You will find some places, especially the Litvisha, that they will say a short Shemona Esrei. The Shliach Tzibur begins with Shemona Esrei, goes through Kedusha, and then becomes silent. And everyone begins Shemona Esrei then, and the Chazan continues from that point on. But according to the Arizal, that quiet Shemona Esrei that we say is the request, the bakosha. But the answer comes with the loud Shemona Esrei, and that's why you shouldn't leave it out. Otherwise, you're not getting a response to what you're asking for in the Shemona Esrei. Now, immediately, I want to first say to you one more thing about, before I move on, that as I said before, that the Parsha says, Oz Yavdil Moshe Shalosh Shorim. Now we know, and we've spoken about it, that Reuven and Gad remained behind with Moshe Rabbeinu, who was nifter and buried Ever LaYarden on the east. And we know Al Pi Kabbalah, he had to be buried in Moshe Rabbeinu, so he would take the people stand up by Trias Amesim, and some of them did a lot of Averas, and they don't have Rishus to go to Yerushalayim, but they can latch on to the tzaddik who was buried with him, and that's why he stayed there in the Midbar. But there was a different question, that I once answered with the Arizal of why Menashe was half in Eretz Yisrael and the other half had to stay out. And there was a whole cheshbon that the Arizal makes, a myriad. You have to be the Arizal to say such a thing of his pshat. But I said that to you once, so I'm not saying that again. What I am saying is a different reason, that Menashe was given the month of Cheshvan. What does the Medrash say about this? When the first Bais HaMikdash was finished, Shlomo HaMelech, we know, built the first Bais HaMikdash, and he completed it in the month of Cheshvan. So the Rabbanu Shalom said to Shlomo, I don't want you to dedicate or celebrate your completion and the beginning of the Avodah in the first Bais HaMikdash until next year in Tishrei. And as we know from the Psukim in Tanakh, that Shlomo HaMelech waited till the next Tishrei, and the tzivui was that they should celebrate the first Bais HaMikdash, and that year they did not even fast Yom Kippur. They were eating, drinking, and dancing, because that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu said. He's the one that said to fast on Yom Kippur, and he was the one that told them not to fast that year, that one exception for Klal Yisrael. Now the Medrash says that the month of Cheshvan went up in Shemayim and said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why did you deny me the honor of having in my month the Chanukas HaBayis? So HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered him and said, I saved your month Cheshvan for the Chanukas HaBayis of the third Bais HaMikdash. The final Bais HaMikdash, the one that's never going to be destroyed and will stand for eternity. So the Shoirish of Cheshvan, which is the month of Menashe, as the Arizal says, he tells you every month who that corresponds to, which Shevet, that since Menashe is Cheshvan, and in Cheshvan there's going to be the celebration, that's Liosad Lavo. So half of him remained in Eretz Yisrael, and the other half, which was before the celebration, still in Golus, he remained in Golus also, and that's why there was a split between Menashe half going in, Vachatzi Shevet HaMenashe going in to Eretz Yisrael. Now, we know that this Monday, Sunday night Monday, is after Tisha B'Av and after Shabbos Nachamu. It's Chamisha Asar B'Av, the 15th day of Av, and as the Mishnah in Tainas says, Lo hoyu b'Yisrael yamim toivim kachamisha asar b'av v'chayom HaKippurim, that the Mishnah equates the two greatest days on the calendar of Klal Yisrael is Yom Kippur and is Chamisha Asar B'Av. So the Gemara right away asks in Tainas, Bishloim Yom HaKippurim, we understand Yom Kippur is one of the two biggest days. It's a day that the whole Klal Yisrael got Slicha, Mechila, and Kapara. So it's a day that was outstanding. We didn't have the Chet HaEgel hanging over us anymore. But what's this Chamisha Asar B'Av, that it's put into the same category as Yom Kippur in Chashivas? So the Gemara goes off for a blot and a half, explaining different things that happened on the 15th day of Av. One was there was a story in Tanakh of Pelegesh Begiva that a group from Shevet Binyamin violated a young girl with intimacy and went through the night with her, and at the end of the night she was so battered and badgered that she died. And they made then a gezerah, no one should marry into Shevet Binyamin. And even though the whole Shevet wasn't guilty, there was just a few. But if in your midst such a thing could happen, and the people who did it were from Shevet Binyamin, they had to remain married from within. No one from Klal Yisrael was allowed to marry into Shevet Binyamin. And on Chamisha Asar Ba'av, the Chachamim took off after a long while this gezerah for Shevet Binyamin. And they were allowed to marry in from all the other Shvatim into Shevet Binyamin, or Shevet Binyamin was allowed to marry into theirs. Then the Gemara says, Kalu Atse HaMaracha, that all the processing and cutting of the wood that was used on the Mizbeach, they finished, and there was a big simcha because it was B'derech Nes, everything that happened. They finished cutting that wood, and they stockpiled it for the winter and for the whole year to have enough wood to make sure that the korbanos, there had to be fire, and you needed the wood to have the fire there and present. And they finished preparing all of that wood. Another thing that happened was the Arizal says that every month corresponds to a different aver, to a different limb. And the Ayin Yamin is Keneged Tammuz, and that's when the Meraglim were poigim in what they saw. They came back with Lashon Hara. And the Ayin Smol, the left eye, is for Chodesh Av. And that's how the Arizal al Pi Kabbalah translates in Eicha, what we're going to say tomorrow night. Eicha, that we say, Eini Yordamayim. Why is there a double lashon? Just say, my eye produced tears and cried, because it's Keneged the Ayin Yamin, which had its tikkun in Tammuz, and then the Ayin Smol for Av, which had its tikkun then. We come to Chamisha Asar Ba'av, and the Gemara says that the girls used to go out to the krumim. The girls used to go out to the vineyards, and they called to the boys, Bachur, Sa Einecha, pick up your eyes, and they did all the shidduchim then. A boy picked out a girl that he saw, and that was the shidduch, the day of the shidduchim. They could do it other days also, but that was the mass day of shidduchim. So, and the Arizal says, I mean, how can we tell boys to stand there and look at the girls? So he explains, because now that we had the tikkun of the Einayim, they couldn't see anything but Ruchnias when they were looking at them. So they knew who they had to marry, which girl was theirs. So that was another simcha. And my Bais Yaakov once had a camp. We had it for like 5, 6, 7 years, and it was in the Catskills, and our camp was right down the road from Rav Moshe Feinstein's camp, and it was an umbrella table, a table with the umbrella that they used to borrow from us for Rav Moshe to be able to sit outside with the comfort of the umbrella. We had a gewaltige schus that every year they came to pick up the umbrella and the table. Now, on Chamisha Asar Ba'av, many of the girls never heard about Chamisha Asar Ba'av, so I gave them the shir, and they all put on white, because the Gemara says that they all borrowed white dresses one from another, and they went out into the krumim, to the vineyards, to do the shidduchim. So that happened. Why was that on Chamisha Asar B'Av? Because the Gemara says that Arboim Yom Koidem Yetziras Havlad Machrizim Bas Ploini LePloini, that 40 days before a child is conceived, they call out who is the shidduch, who is the person's basherter. Now we know that a person can push away his basherter. It means you find people who never got married, and Nebuch, why didn't they get married if there was a basherter provided for them 40 days? But sometimes they went out on 10 dates, and they should have married the second person already. That was their basherter. But a lot of people, unfortunately, miss the boat because they're too strict on themselves, for nonsense most of the time. He's a nice person, a beautiful family, and seems to have nice midos, and he's good looking. So why aren't you marrying the person? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's for me. You know, you can go to an extreme sometimes, and that's where parents have to step in. That means you're not allowed to force a child to marry X, Y, or Z. But there's sometimes they have to differentiate between a solid reason or something to go with to discontinue a shidduch. But anyway, 40 days before a child is conceived, it's already called out before who is the basherter. Now we know in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah there's a world famous difference of opinion when the world was created. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah and Daf Chav Zayin says there's a machloikis in the Mishnah between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yehoshua. Rabbi Yehoshua held that the world was physically created in Nisan. And when we say Bereshis bara Elokim, that Adam Arishon was created on the 6th day, that was Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But 6 days before that, the world started being created, and that was on that was Chof Daled Iyar, Chof Hey Iyar, the 25th day of Iyar. That was Bereshis bara Elokim, and the world began being created. That was the opinion of Rabbi Yehoshua. Now, Rabbi Eliezer held, no, the world was actually created in Tishrei, and Chof Hey Elul began the birth. We paskin lahalacha, so says the Arizal, and so says Tosfos on that Amid. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Both are right. One is talking about machshava, and one is talking about maisa. That Rav Yehoshua, who we paskin like, held that in machshava, that the thought, the machshava, the whole trend of the architectural planning began Chof Hey Elul, and then on Rosh Hashanah, on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Adam Arishon was created. And the other opinion held, but what was in Tishrei, that was machshava. That was, in other words, the actual Maisa was in Nisan. the physical world that we see, the trees, the oceans, the everything. But in Chof Hei Elul was machshava, and it completed 6 days later in the planning stage that Adam Harishon should be. And that's why it's called Hayom Haras Olam. Haras means Heroyon, means pregnancy. The child's not born yet. Now, if you go from Chof Hei Elul 40 days before, you come to Chamisha Asar B'Av. And says the Bnei Yissaschar and the Arizal that just like an individual is created 40 days before he actually the conceiving, so too for the world in general, the machshava began Chof Hei Elul. And what was Chamisha Asar B'Av? The machshava l'machshava. Like we say by Shalosh Shudas, it's Rivin derivin, which means Holy of Holies in the Olam Elyonim. Because on Shabbos we go up, we start Friday night, and the Kedusha grows as the day goes, like I once said on one of these shiurim, that 3 chalokim of the neshama are by davening Friday night, by Mizmor LeDavid the first, by Boi V'Sholem when we turn around the second, and by Hapore Sukkah Sholem the third. The 5th and 6th, the 4th, 5th and 6th, the 4th is by Yismach Moshe, Shabbos morning. By Nishmas is the 4th, Yismach Moshe the 5th, and by Aye, the word Aye in the Kedusha of Keser is the 6th. And the completion of the Neshama Yisera with all of its chalokim. But when we come into Mincha, that's already even a higher madrega. You have, first of all, the complete Neshama Yisera with all the chalokim. And that's the reason that the Shemona Esrei of Mincha and Shabbos is the least words of any Shemona Esrei. Weekday, Yom Tiv, Shabbos, the shortest Shemona Esrei is Mincha Shabbos. Why? So say the Kadmonim, because Dibur, saying Shemona Esrei, is Gashmias. But now you're in the realm of Ravin, the highest level of the time of Shabbos. So therefore, you have the least Gashmias in saying the shortest Shemona Esrei. So that is the Chamisha Asar B'Av, and there are other things that the Gemara says in addition that we see. It's an unbelievable day, and the Arizal says that all the din and the Gevura of Tammuz and half of are now done, and we go into the realm of Chesed and Rachamim. And the Arizal even says an unbelievable thing. He says, the way we have the power of Elul, and Rosh Hashanah, and Aseres Yemei Tshuva, and Yom Kippur, and the 4 days between Yom Kippur and Sukkot, which is connected to Shem Havaya, 4 days, and then Sukkot, all stems from Chamisha Asar B'Av. If we wouldn't have the Chamisha Asar B'Av, we could not go in and have the level, the push, the starting push to succeed in our slichas and our davening and our Tekiah Shofar of Rosh Hashanah and everything we're doing. The starting point and the first push that propelled us into that realm is the realm of the umbrella of Chamisha Asar B'Av, the 15th day of now Shabbos Nachamu is the mashpia. because next Shabbos, this coming Shabbos, is Shabbos Nachmu, Parshas Veschanan, and as the Zohar HaKadosh says, and I've said it to you a number of times, the whole week takes its power from the preceding Shabbos. So says so says the Zohar HaKadosh, my name is Barchen Kol Yoimen, that every good thing that happens to you in your business, in your house, in your nachas, and that comes from the koyach of the Shabbos right before. So if all the things we've spoken about Chamisha Asar Ba'ov is so heavenly and so beautiful that it must be drawing the strength from the preceding Shabbos, and that is Shabbos Nachamu. Now, it does come out very seldomly, but when Tisha B'Av is Shabbos and we push off the fast till Sunday, so from Sunday until Chamisha Sabbav, I think it comes out on a Shabbos. But most of the weeks, like this year, that we have Tisha B'Av on Tuesday, Monday night Tuesday, we have Shabbos Nachmu, and then we have Chamisha Asar B'Av on Sunday night Monday, and many Rebbes have beautiful Tishin on Chamisha Asar B'Av, because that is the day that the world, the Rosh Hashanah is tied, is propelled from that point. Now, in the I think it's not the Be'er Mayim Chaim, I think it's the Arvei Nochal says that in the pasuk, when it says Bekerev Haaretz in our parsha, in the midst, why do we have to have the word Bekerev? And it's a universal, it's a very important thing for every Yid to know this word. Because he asked it, the pasuk could have just said Ba'aretz, and the context of the pasuk would have been perfectly fine without the word Bekerev, or it's in the midst. So the Arvei Nochal says that it says Bekerev because there are many people who they're from a Yidden. They keep Shabbos, they keep Kashrus, they put on tefillin every day. But there are times, let's say they are away for a business trip, or they're on a vacation in Miami. So they have a certain anhaga that in their house they would never do this or do that. And you'll find some Yidden, unfortunately, well, I'm on vacation, often vague, all of these statements which will try to rationalize and justify why they're doing something that they would normally never do at home. You see people running over to close the mechitza quickly, that for 10 seconds there may be a woman seen in the shul, and then you find them in Miami, they're mixed swimming in the pool. I'm on vacation now. That, says the Arvei Nochal, Bekerev, that when you are outside the house and inside the house, wherever you're finding yourself, in the midst of a population that doesn't know you, and you're not bringing the shtreimel with you, and you have your beard, you have your samet yamel, but there are sometimes coolers. I even never saw somebody eating something in a stopover on the highway that was not Chol Yisrael, and this was a shtreimel. Often vague. I'm out of where I live. I'm on my way. It's kosher, but it's not Chol Yisrael. I said, do you eat Chol Vakum in where you live? Chas v'sholom. My kids never ate so what are you doing over here? But this creeps in. This is the Samach Mem who is looking for the opportunity to be able to get his way, have us trip. I mean, you see that these are the last minutes of Golus, Iran, with Eretz Yisrael, what's going on, and the Rebbeinu Shalom should have Rachmanis, and the Taka should come, and that Klal Yisrael would finally be able to be Oivdei Hashem, as we are, Baruch Hashem. I'm not criticizing Klal Yisrael, but from time to time a person could slip, and we have to reinforce the backbone and the cementing factor of our emunah and our bitachon. And to be my brother-in-law, the Shalom Mordechai Rabbi Balkany, he's always busy talking about emunah and bitachon, and Baruch Hashem, because people do need chizuk, and we ourselves need the chizuk. We are not above it, and we're not beyond it in any which way. So we should be able to take heed and to do what will help us in a more dynamic way. Now, Rav Simcha Bunim of Pshischa, and I'm closing with this vort, he asks a question, why in this week's Sedra, it says, Uvikashtem misham es Hashem Elokecha umatzasa, ki sidrishenu b'chol levavecha uv'chol nafshecha. So he asks, Rav Simcha Bunim, that uvikashtem is a plural. It's a plural, talking to the tzibur. And umatzasa is a singular. So he answers the question and says that uvikashtem is going on our davening and our davening b'tzibur. That when you come together, uvikashtem, you're going to have a lot of different people in the tzibur. You have 200 people. Some are tzaddikim, some are beinanim, and some are nebuch rishoyim. So, and on that he said the word tzibur is the tzaddik is the tzaddikim, the beis is the beinanim, and the reish is the taka the rishoyim. But when you come together and you're davening b'tzibur, then you are able to rise above the factions of your tzibur and go together with the tzaddikim in the tefillah. That's so said Rav Simcha Bunim of Pshischa, and he was the Rebbe of the Chidushi Arim, and Reb Moshe of Koznitz, who was the Koznitz Maggid's son. So we have to, the Gemara says that if somebody davens at home, when he has a minyan nearby, the Gemara in Brachos at the beginning of the parak, around Daf Zion, says he is a HaKadosh Baruch Hu calls out and says, how is my bad neighbor doing? That means I'm in the Beis Medrash with the tefillah of the tzibur, and you're staying 2 blocks away. Yeah, I'm not in the mood, I'm too tired. There are people who used to travel 5 miles just to get a myriad with a minyan. And I know someone who got on a plane, never missed a minyan, and he missed in a place that there was no more mincha minyan. He got on a plane, he was right next to the airport, and went to a city where he was not going to get there in time that they would have the mincha minyan. So the value of these opportunities we have to enhance, and we have to be able to run with them with enthusiasm, besimcha, and all of the zest and zeal.